Welcome to Roleplay Cafe. It's Dale here. I thought I'd do a little R&R, that is recap and reflections of the SCARAB convention Dark Age of Man session, which happened last Saturday, from 2 to 6. It was a 4-hour block of time. We got there, my son and I, about 30 minutes early. Got the peruse initially a little bit the place while we were settling in. Happened to see a Axis and Allies buddy of mine, which I've been running into him at various places over the last 2 or 3 months. It's been kind of strange since there was like a 20-year gap in between seeing him and all. But anyway, it's cool. He was running some Pathfinder D&D on the other side of the deal. So anyway, we go in there and get to our table, set up, and really it was down to the wire. All the other tables were filling up before our group showed up. That the sign up did initially. Okay, so while I was filling in time, giving them a little bit of a setting, prep and knowledge, as well as what was expected of play from the rules. Improvisational, no wallflowers, just jump in and say what you got to say, that kind of thing. Anyway, it got to about 5 after, and one of the guys said he had a buddy over there who could join if needed to. I said, sure, go ahead and grab him, and see if he wants to play. So they bring him over. Jory, he was there if need be to jump in. But at this time, we had 4 players. So he held back, which was good because eventually the 5th player did show up. Now, we had laid out the 5 pre-gens that Jason provided, which I had paper weighted them down with D12s that purchased a little bit earlier from a vendor in the other room. And told them you can keep them as a reminder of a good or bad experience, depending on how this plays out. Jokingly so, because it always plays out good. Nevertheless, thanks. They sat down, and I asked them to give their account of their characters' repute and how they garnered that repute. And the first guy to my right, which you have to view because I can't remember exactly all of the characters' names, even though at the time I was using them all the way through. I had written them down, but since I've lost that sheet. But nevertheless, I go by profession. So the guy that was a soldier said, "How'd you get your repute?" And then let up the "Where are you?" Which his repute was, he had helped track down a criminal. That seems to be pretty common thing that people kind of, he was one of Washburn's men. So he was on that posse that did that, as well as a war band that went out and came back as one of the only survivors of it. Was victorious nevertheless. And then the other one is he was charismatic and loved the frolic and cavort and everything like that. So he was known for that throughout. So boom, where are you at now? Of course, he's in a tavern, kicking back. Samantha Pratt is the proprietor, and he's right near the water's edge. And I'd given the layout that Jason had about the water table being high and people having to it was bustling, but people were jockeying for space on those boardwalks, try to stay dry, is the word. Yeah, there was vendors out there trying to sell their wares and whatnot, but because of the spring thaw, but the planning was starting to ramp up and everything else, right? So from that current season and setting information, the next guy, the hunter, said he lived in a cabin or lean-to right above town in the woods north. No, actually, he said across the river. Okay, this would be in airline territory. No, wait a minute. He said yeah, he said there, but he collected pelts. Uh, he said he had a good working. I told him about that Saverick Hurst would patrol around the woodlands around there. Maybe he had come in contact with him. He said, yeah, he has a working relationship with him. They he says he's another pelter. You know, he does that, but he's in town selling pelts. That's what he said. And he had been part of that party that had helped apprehend that thief or that murder. So he kind of headed him off in the past and helped corral him while the posse got apprehended him. So he's got a little renown from that, as well as his pelts are such high quality that he's got a good one of that. Gave him a little bit boost with his trading ability when he set that in motion with his description. And also that, basically helped take down an animal or boar. So this is what they were saying on their own recognizances. And, we're making it up. I'm just sitting over there smiling, watching it go down. And the third guy, he's a priest. This was the guy that was a friend that they brought in. A little bit older gentleman, has some whiteness here, more so than I do. But he was a good sword. At least I'd say in the range of 35 to 50 something. You could tell they were all gamers. The third one, the individual I'm about to speak of, that played the priest, he was a little bit more predisposed to referencing pop, the pop references. Not overly so, though. I mean, it wasn't. He wasn't so distracting that it became an issue for the other ones, I think. But you know what he did it. But he stayed in character as it was, and except for those little squeaky points, which are at a convention, so everybody's there to relax, so it was okay. Was not detrimental. He said from looking on the map, he was from Northwich. He said the Vikings, and he said, "Does your world have Vikings or Danes?" I said, "Indeed." Sea people, the Danes attacked him when he was a boy, or attacked his family, killed his family. He was in hiding. He tried to. He stayed there long enough to where he tried to build up some rebellion because they had kind of were lingering in that area and trying to do guerrilla attacks on them and whatnot. But eventually he kind of put down that sword and headed to out toward Dredgewater. And that's where he made his way there. During that period of time, he had given up the sword, as it were, and turned to a life of Christianity. In other words, to try to convert as many pagans, which as possible, but he still had an axe to grind. The Danes saw them as worst of the lot, which was a little bit ironic because of what Jason had said in the story prep. I knew that there was going to be issues, or he might come to close contact, which is great. Anyway, the next guy over is the pagan witch. Okay, well, they had an interesting relationship during the session. But anyway, the pagan witch was a female, a little bit of apothecary outside, but she also dabbled in the arts, mystic arts, so to speak. But she was renowned for selling her wares, and she had healed a boy, as it were, with them by coming, upon something. These were repute things. So this is how she's known in the town. The priest, I should retcon back to him, he had pulled a boy out of the drink, as well as his thing from being from Northwich, for an outsider, and the tales that he had all led up to what gave him the repute he did. Nevertheless, back to Raven, that's what she did, and that's why I should say that back to the hunter, he said he was in town selling his pelts to get seeds to replant his help replant his garden for the harvest, saying they were his little garden in his area in his clearing, right? So that's where he's at. The soldier's knocking back brews. The priest is on his way down from the abbey, going to the town. Ironically, he said he was going to provide them with hay and provide them with this for the horses in their stables, right? And he wanted to get out and see what was going on in the town and whatnot. So he's on the back of a wagon going to the back of the tavern to offload on the boardwalk, right? It's being pulled. His cart's being pulled by his donkey, and he's whistling and saying prayers and blessing people as he passes and all that stuff. So that was his take. The witch, Raven, was in the same tavern or bar as the soldier, and she was in the corner, and she was trying to not. I mean, she wasn't so secretively trying to do it, but that was a place where she could stay a little bit high and dry and sell her wares to the inebriated patrons in there, and see what she could do. You know, it was a little bit. I added a little bit of a twist of like that. It was at least a lot of activity and a lot of migration and movement and prepping for something. So it was a bit of a fair-like atmosphere around the area. Well, not fair, so to speak, but at least trade was plentiful. So that had the three of them centralized in that area, and the hunter was more on the boardwalk in the center of town, trying to trade for seeds. The first thing I'd rolled was that a troll was found by the waterside. All right. The boardwalk ripples somewhat. He's somewhat shifted in his seat. Then he hears splintering cracks, and he sees this humongous humanoid, even though it was deformed, black streaking hair rise up out of the water, trying to position himself, stable himself on the boardwalk that the priest is traveling down. And he's taking a swing and battering the cornerstone side pillar of the Gold Leaf Inn. It cracks. Okay. I must say that afterwards, Dorian told me that there was nine critical successes and 9 critical failures. And this is going to pepper throughout the whole adventure these occurrences and situations. It's going to be a little bit more radical in either direction. All right. So this creature, which he hasn't determined what it is, raises up and is slamming it, and it cracks. Everybody in the tavern feels a shift. You know, I had people rolling their mind for the situation. The soldier was a little bit more inebriated, so when he rolled it, that it just validated that he rolled like a critical fail at that moment, right? He didn't know. And this beast is rising up, and it hits it again. And the priest sees this going on. He's in direct view of it. So he jumps out of his wagon, raises his holy symbol, is just running down there with his cudgel, jumps to hit. Well, it's a crit success. So he beans this creature in the brain pan and the back, and he hears a little crack. It sinks in a little bit. The creature slips and goes down. Now, this creature's received 2 wounds, okay? But he's in a precarious position, the creature. He's halfway bracing himself on the boardwalk and halfway hitting the underpilings of this tavern. But he does hit it, and it coincides with the rolls that are happening inside, with the negative rolls, right? Well, Raven's inside, and she's quick enough in body to, as the awareness settles in on the tavern goers, that they need to leave. There's something desperately wrong. They're spilling out of this tavern, and so was Raven. She's one of the last ones, getting to this dock as it's splintering, and it's cracking and careening and shifting off of his moors, off of his foundation. There's been so much damage done by this creature that it starts to crack and snap and go up. Now, the soldier has not being mindful, critically so, to his own detriment of what's going on. He starts to slide. It interrupts his story. He's wondering where all of his eager ears are as the people get up and leave. And he slides, and his table falls over. He falls over, and he slides up and hits the bar. And he's looking as everybody's leaving, all elbows and heels out the door. He tries to get up and run, and poor escape, but that just implies that the place is already in a position and is peaking, and it's torn away from the boardwalk too, the front entrance, and it cracks. The building goes up, and he's holding on to the inside of the door frame, looking up as he's falling backwards. Well, Raven reaches out after him. No, I believe this was the hunter. When the hunter saw that vantage point, he ran, and he was trying to pull people out, and he manages very successfully to grab the soldier by the surcoat and pull him out, so much so that he pulls him out right past him and sets him down. It's like it's one huge step. And then they see this tavern come fully off and start sliding the river dredge. At this time, the beast that was trying to take out the tavern is crawling up from the side. It puts a big, humongous paw on the boardwalk, trying to pull itself up. And then the tavern, as it goes down, it catches it underpinning it, and it pulls it down. Right now, Raven goes over there because they see some of this creature try to get back up, and the priest is standing there. Right. Raven had seen the priest at that time beat him, and she tried to call lightning down. So she took her staff up and she called lightning down, at a horrible result. Not so much that she hit the priest, but she hit the wagon behind him as he had been the beast, and the wagon just exploded, and all the hay just went up in the air and is filtering through the air around him like so much confetti. And the priest turns around, his after the beast tries to get up out of the brace himself and is trying to get back up, but yet the tavern takes him under, and he goes down. And Raven runs over there, and she's trying to search for the beast. So she's using, she rolls her spirit. She's trying to divine where this beast is under the wave, and doesn't have a good roll on it. It's not successful, so she can't determine it. It automatically makes the assumption that he's just underpinned underneath the tavern as it goes down, which, for all intent and purposes, as far as I care, a situation. The priest turns around, and his wagon is the center of it's got a hole blown of it. All the hay is up in the air and thrown about, and he calms his burrow down, gets him turned around, and heads back up to get him back to dry land and away from the situation. The people are clamoring around him and thanking him as he goes and whatever, and he's, of course, the adoration. Anyway, that garners him a repute point in a moment. Well, he did, and supposedly taken that creature out straight away, with one hammer blow, one fell swoop. he took this creature out. They stand there. She can't find what's Raven can't determine where this creature went. They stand there on the precipice of the dawning of the day as the heads back. the hunter decides to uh, go back to his cabin. This is where the fifth participant showed up, and he was the ward of Washburn. So he had seen. I should break on a little bit because a lot happened, but the ward when I heard it was in the stronger people that witnessed all of this. And as the priestess started to leave, they hear a cry because I'd rolled like it was merchant or stolen merchant. Well, the merchant was making accusations that in the throng of people that was around him, some cut person come and taking his money, and he was grabbing people, and he was a bit foppish himself, but accusing everyone around him for in this the throng of people that were not his betters, and who grabbed and took his coin, and then the soldier is straightway walking over there, and of course this foppish merchant that this well-to-do is badgering everybody, and then turns around and accuses him of like just letting thieves run wild, for the merchants and anybody of nobility going through this harass and harangued and whatnot, and he needs to get a grip on his people and look at this. They've cut my purse and whatnot. So he does that, and he gets up, and he had fallen off the boardwalk and gotten into knee deep in mud. So he's trying to get out of it as quick as possible. After he does his little speech and finger accusations, he gets back up there. The hunter searches for any of his purse being in the mud and the muck at his feet. So he rolls luck, and he does find the string. So he pulls it up, and there is a purse there. So he holds it out to him, and everybody's got his eyes on the foppish merchant. And I made him roll like because he says, "Here is your purse. No one here took it." Whatever. Now I made him roll prestige to see how he could affect, and he quit. And when he does, the merchant, even though he's not accustomed to it, he gets shamefaced. He reaches in reluctantly reaches in his coin purse and fishes out through the mud and wipes off and gives them each a nice shiny coin. So everyone in the party that was standing around, save the priest, got the coin. And so that added a little bit to their purse, at least momentarily. So I bumped that up. He does a slight apology, but then he kind of regains himself as he's walking off. You know what I mean? Gathers his senses as he walks off. But that was a moment of weakness for him, and he stood in front of in front of society, and he had his tail tucked a little bit, and it was checked at that rate. So that's when the hunter goes off back to his the ward and the soldier. No, the soldier goes back to the barracks. The ward decides to stay out a little bit later past his curfew and see if he could ascertain the whereabouts of I need to retcon again. When they left, before they fully left, that incident that had occurred, there was you have to forgive, I don't know if this started. No, it was at that time. One of the two of the Danes had been discovered at that moment amongst the throng that were supposedly rumored to be cavorting at the Gold Leaf, and this happened in between. And he stood in front of, like, when the soldier saw the tattoos, the runic tattoos around his neck, and the braided hair, the Dane, and no, I'd rolled body. I'd rolled found body. Okay, so there was a body that floated up and didn't quite make it out of the tavern as it went into the water. Now, I didn't go all the way into it, but obviously this Dane was trapped somewhat and couldn't get out successfully. Got a little bit choked up with the water. The dragons. Uh, they had gotten him up, and he's looking around for a sword because it actually had misplaced. I didn't know where it was, so he's clamoring for that. That's when the soldier approaches him and levels the sword and say, where are you from, this and that. Anyway, the Dane, the soldier, the hunter, I believe, says, "I believe you owe me a life debt." So I didn't roll his prestige, didn't quite do it excellently enough. So Dane somewhat flashed a questioning look as far as like his ability to have to succeed to that life debt, and he balks at it and turns around and tries to leave whenever the soldier points his blade toward him, and he runs and dives in the water and makes it speaks up. So apologies, that was in between what had happened there. They take care of the foppish merchant, and then they head off. Like I said, the hunter to his little lean-to shack, the soldier to the barracks. The ward decided to stay out past his curfew and see if, because he's got to get up early, super early next day. Of course, he's a priest, and the witch, she heads off to her abode. She gets up the next morning. They all wake up fairly early. The can trade for some more seeds to finish his thing. So he's up early and he starts heading down south. The ward is, and the barrack leader, the soldier, is up. The ward is up. Both of them from the ringing of the priest's bell as he's ringing it up on the hill at the abbey. So they get up and they start their day. The soldier goes to do something. The Lord seems very stressed about do something about the Goalie Fin, which is now halfway blocking the river. All the fishermen, you can tell some of the fisher boats had been brought in by the current toward the Goalie Fin, and it had disrupted flow and trade and travel. Ability to make money off the travelers through this area right now, it was critical. So I should say, so he's out of sorts, as it were. So he gets a little bit mouthy toward the soldier. You just right now tell me to think about, or you just now think about telling me about this Dane. We've had this, the high water table, potential Dane assaults. Lord Washburn's been doing what he's doing. I hear reports about him putting up signage saying that I had dismissed his wife, but his wife had contended with the ward who came in late after curfew, right? And I had that situation like the ward had rolled a prestige whenever he came in, and Lady Washburn was the overseer of him, and he rolled very poorly. So she scolded him, and her view toward him is that he's more of a cumbersome weight, and so she's more or less, which makes sense in the after effect of why he's wanting to get out and make a name for himself or do something or get away. But nevertheless, he's hammering those nails in his bed, and he's trying to lay on them. So nevertheless, that had been what happened. So Lord Washburn tells the soldier to gather up three of his men and head out. And so what he did, or take 4 men rather. The soldier comes out and gets the ward and tells him to run and intersect go get the hunter, because he feels like he's a good man, and track him. So he sends the ward in that direction. The ward's eager to go because he just wants to be involved in something, make a name for himself or whatever. So, and the soldier's been training him, is what they stated, as far as in the martial arts combat and whatnot. They've already gone down, the soldiery has already gone down into the village, cantering at a slower pace or trotting, but the soldier, I mean, the ward does intersect with the soldier. The hunter, excuse me, and bids him to come with them to track down the Dane that had left. So he follows in suit, stays on foot as he doesn't, have a horse. But this is where he said he preferred up the trail of where the Dane, who had swam to the other side of the river to try to pick up his trail. The old man is ferrying them across. He's there. He lets them get on, and he starts pulling across the thing. Now the priest had already gathered up and approached Father Falcone. Father Falcone has, a few of them have undergone a vow of silence for a period, so he's having to communicate with sign language. He does stand up and said that he's going to take another bale of hay down to his supplies. There's been, obviously, it's been a call out for repairs and whatnot, and see if he could go aid the village proper. So he gets in his wagon and starts heading down with the same donkey. He's calmed it down, so he's heading. It did little slight repairs to the wagon. It's got some more hay, and he's heading down toward the village again. He ends up intersecting with. She said she wanted to find out about this beast, this creature, and so she had some scrolls, bits of information, some arcane lore and knowledge and whatnot. She was and she crits it. What I tell that she could see of what she saw and where it was located was the types of ogres that would burrow in underwater, the side of rivers, and then come out and cave themselves up here, up in the riverbed. So had a bit of a slimy ichor protective coating on them, and they were, I appropriately describe the describe the beast. So she puts she's been heading up toward that area to determine that if there is a cause, that what interrupted this ogre to bring it out and made it take its wrathful vengeance on this tavern, which supposedly maybe the partygoers stirred it into awakening or what have you, maybe out of hibernation or what. Anyway, she wants to go look for signs that there's a habitation. So again, she runs into the priest, and she does see that there is water coming, or bubbles, not only from around the tavern, that is sufficiently sunk halfway into the mud and muck in the side of the river, but by the side of the river itself, there's extra bubbles coming up, right? And it looks a little bit caved in, as if it might have been halfway a cave in of a. She tries with the people that are gathered around to reconstruct or try to at least get the goods out of the sunken tavern, or either repair some of the foundation, the starting. She can't get a tool from them, so she goes to the priest. She sees him. Well, he rolls to see if he has a tool, but he rolls poorly, of course. As luck would have it, he just has a pitchfork. She used the bale of hay. Makes sense, right? So he gets the pitchfork out, and she happens to steal or commandeer a shovel, poor shovel. He's got the shovel, and she's trying to break things up with the pitchfork. They're going at it. They do it horribly, like it's a critical fail. Jory into each other's holes as they dug, which riotous laughter around the table. Everybody was having a good time and leaning into what was going on. So that was good to see. And just as a little intercession, I was hitting on all cylinders. It was It was very conversational, very much touch and go. People would just pick up right when it got back at them. There was no, it just flowed. And when you're running at that speed for almost a 4 hour game, you cover a lot of ground. All right. So anyway, and I'm trying to sum up here. So they're digging, but they can't find any. They get over to the other side. When they get off, uh, they don't see no tracks uh, immediately, but they do see across the river where past a little bit past where the inn used to stand. They see the witch and the thing, so they tell the young ward, to stay there and go back and fetch them. They may need them, or whatnot. So he's standing there, painfully slow as the old man ferries back across the river to back and picks up three cowled travelers and is bringing them back. And you can hear just him rattling away his stories and whatnot. He has a captive audience, as it were, unless they want to dive off the side of that ferry to get off. By the time they reach the other side of the other bank, but they wanted the ward to go back across and get him and back across here. So he had to endure a lot of lip, as it were. But anyway, so he does. He gets back across there. Well, it takes him a while. The other, I think, gets the horse from the ward, and they're traveling along. And it's on this side of the bank. It's less marshy. There is more of a cliff facing to where you could fall off a little bit down to the water below. But they kind of skirt there. There's an island a couple 2 or 3 miles down south, or 2.5 miles down the river, that he suspected where the Danes would winter and launch their attacks from, right? Maybe a rock island with high pines and whatnot. And there have been evidences of some habitation there from whatever. But they're on the other side of the river, and they follow down. As they do this, they get to a point to where this when I rolled the Viking longship. So they almost tripped over, not literally, but figuratively, this long ship, this overturned and half covered up with branches and foliage and whatnot. Forward, tells his men to stay there while he scouts out a little bit. The scout is still back there, tending to the horses, holding the horses. Goes up forward, and to their right, the river's to their left, to their right, up on a little ridge. Unbeknownst to the soldier, as he's approaching this overturned vessel, track on how many bodies there are actually from them and the tree trunks, are rushing down with a war cry. Now, at this time earlier, I had said to the Raven, the witch, that she had an uneasy feeling and a tingling. It's like this. None of the animals' life was, were active. She heard the almost overly audible babbling of the stream, but nothing else really. She heard the foot pads of the ward as he's coming down the walk toward them. The priest was still staring at his broken shovel because it had broken during that crit break, and he doesn't notice. His mind is so poor, mind roll on it so poor that he doesn't really understand. She does, and she hears the footfalls. Well, this time the ward senses something too, because he's walking away from the workers, and he walks in an area to where it kind of goes blank. He takes a step back and he can hear him a little bit better, and he goes forward. But it's like forward, what's going on? But not before, and almost in tandem with the war cry that she hears from the other side. She's able to successfully point it out to the other two that she hears this drifting up from downstream on the other side of the river. They're running now straight toward the men that are there, the three men, and on that, they run off. Um, the soldier still has no, doesn't have his horse at this moment. The horses run off. The Danes, there ends up being five of them, are running down, and they engage the other two. They they are chasing initially. Swerve. They break apart initially, where one of them comes after the hunter. He tries to pivot around a tree and pull back and shoot, but not before he gets buffeted and fatigued with a hit, and he fails his shot, and his shot goes wide. Um, the tree is successfully in between them. He gets hit, but the other, not before his own retinue of men have been engaged, and he runs up. The soldier runs up. One of his men is taken out. His head is cleaved off, and it bounces off and into the river. Because they all have shields and swords, or axes rather, and they had been clambering their axe up against their shield, gathering together once they saw those men to try to do whatever they want to do with them, push them off the edge or lock shields or shields wall. Anyway, inside of his shield, he drops the balls and rolls to the side. Well, the soldier keeps running out the back of the Dane that is facing the hunter. And at this point in time, the hunter is buffeted yet again, is hit again, taken two, and after the third, the Dane's axe. I know what the soldier of the hunter does hit him once, and it kind of goes up, raises, and pinches into, he's describing this, underneath a section of armor that the Dane was wearing, piecemeal or whatever, but it does nick him. But by this time, it's a little bit too late, because the soldier just cleaves right down there and then pulls it out, and then that Dane drops. They both turn around, and then they're able to, the hunter rolls to see just how far away, if he's lucky that any of these horses are nearby. Because he was trying to run to a horse, but whenever he got hit the second time before he turned around. Rounded his last single man. He was down to one man. His second man dropped because it was 2-on-2 with two Danes left, and then two of his men. And his second man dropped, and those two Danes were going in on his remaining man. As his remaining man, he splits them with the horse, buffets one away as he's coming down with his sword, and he decapitates one of the other Danes. The hunter lets loose on a critical fail with an arrow, which then shoots into the thigh of the soldier. And he said, it makes a remark, you should have broken right, as the soldier was wheeling around to get his bearings on the time. Speared the horse, and with him being hit, the horse topples and slides. He does make a body check to where he don't get pinioned under the horse. So the soldier's able to get out from underneath there, and he regains his footing as the hunter's trying to get this, and splashes in the river. But because he's on either side of it, it was lower DV, and the soldier does get a critical strike on him and takes the last Dane out. He hits and looks around, and upon discussion, I'll look over there at how long they suggest we get across the river, but via the ferry to the other side, because they see the necessity of speed from all this, the war cry and everything. Well, it's going to take way too long. Wish they could have win it if they wanted to, but he looks around, and it's funny because the the pagan witch wanted to devise a way to make it instantaneously, whether it was there or not, generated across the top of the waves, but just the stirring of the waves down from the how it was going around the rolls and has the idea we're looking for a log, we're looking for something, whatever, and a section of the end was able to be torn off and broken, and then they could ride it across. And they found a long enough pole, and they was trying to go across it, across the river, and trying to intersect with how they could find a way to, traverse to get to the other side to meet up with the other group. Well, that they overshoot about a mile. In fact, getting to the point to where they are buffeted up against that rock of the island that is in the middle of the river, where supposedly Washburn had said that the Vikings habitated. Well, they don't know this. Even the ward isn't privy to this information. Only the soldier was, right? Well, it's a bit splintered beyond repair. They're able to grab hold to any of the roots or some and climb their way up. And one of them gets there a little bit faster and pulls his head up over the side. And this uneasy still and silence is still there. But they're not readily like keyed in on that. But he looks over and he hears this guttural howls and cries and changes and morphs and his distended limbs and whatever come back into socket. And he pulls himself up and the other two, and they witness this transition back into they cloister around it, circle around it, and have a weapon or two drawn as they look down. And it goes back into the naked form and visage of a man. It's like, and he's unconscious at this point for the pain. Well, the ward taps him with his sword, and his eyes spring up, and he looks up, and he's frightened. Well, at this point in time, I make the priest make a roll for. They don't readily recognize who this is exactly what the priest does. It's his brother Timothy. All right, which he knew he had taken is more of others who slowed up in the morning. $1 adult. His attention span wasn't really there. He wasn't that quick, right? He's always chronically tired, whatnot. And he's laying there, and so he sees him, and he's like, "What has happened? Why are you here?" The questions obviously, transpired in full ferocity, going back and forth. And the guy gets up, and he's looking for coverage. There's no clothing or blood. The hands of the fingernails and around the mouth when he's speaking, inside of his mouth. Brother, the priest then, because he has a thing against the Danes, he even concluded that it was Danes that wrecked the tavern earlier, right? The Danes. So they were up to their no goods, and he was hiding it somewhere or whatnot. So he's like, the Danes apprehend you and take you, hold you up. And then he convinces Brother Timothy that, yes, that was the situation. That must have been. So they take Brother Timothy, and they're trying to find some way, see if there's any. Well, they go a little bit to the center of the island, and they see a habitation, more of a bit of impromptu longhouse with the mulch on top, sod rather, to keep the heat in and the cold out. There's barrels there. There's like kegs of ale or whatever that's been. It drained. Some of them still have liquids in them. They forth between the two groups. The other group is looking at them, and the size of the boat, it can carry 30 to 50 Danes. And then the soldier gets wide-eyed and says, "Wait a minute, we fought 5 of them. They could be heading toward Dredgetown now as we speak, etc." So they gather their horses up and try to make their way back to the ferry. All right. All of this that were happening was in the same. They find clothe him with some sackcloth. And one of them says that they want to set I think the witch want to set the place on fire. It catches a very successful roll. So it not only catches the first building, but all the embers pop over to the next building and sets it on fire. The forest, the pines itself, and it's going up its blaze. At that point in time, the battle was ending with the other two, and that's when they saw and smelt downriver that huge flame wall, as it were, and going up. But they have the same realization about the number of Vikings that could be impending danger towards Dredgewater. This is real what Washburn said. That they're trying to make their way back. They can head back. The other group had taken the barrels. They had left Brother Timothy tied up. They took the barrels. They barrel rode, jumped into the water, jumped off, grabbed the barrels, was floating down, was trying to find some. I see how lucky they were to find some kind of a purchase to where they could get up onto the side of the river. But this area is more of an excellent critical success with his mind, and finds that there are root systems coming out and almost down from a tree that's been halfway offset, from this cliff facing, and its roots go all the way down to the water. It enables them to catch the barrels almost if they, I rolled the body. And I think some other thing about, the body found. And not too far down the track, they had seen one of these posts up about Washburn's claiming that, Mort's being claiming that Washburn path before. This is before an area before it gets too swampy, like the southern reaches of Dredgewater, to where it starts to slope down and gets to more of the river level, to where it gets washed, where there's a washout. There's still a little bit up, so it's still dry enough. They see this body laying there, and it's all but picked clean in more ways than one for his item, the foppish noble that was traveling through Dredgewater. I suppose he was going back to London. Who knows? But he had been set upon by something wild that had torn him up. At this point, too, there was another, I believe, roll that I made. They surround them and, accuse them of doing this, or trying to level all kind of accusations toward them, and what they have, skinning them up and down for any kind of valuables. They try to broker peace and talk their way out to it. We're traveling, lost some of our barrels. There's ale in the water, which piques one of them's interest, and he looks over further and down there, and he sees it. And he goes, "Look, come here, look." So two of them, more of the captain of the little squad, and the one that first looked over, he seems more of a alert down to latch onto the barrels, and you can hear them talking. And the two of the other ones, the two of Mort's men, one of them looking down there, half preoccupied with what's going down. The situation is going down there with his comrades trying to fish out these barrels. Is really at sword point. Has the group at a disadvantage. Now, the three things almost simultaneously occur at this. The priest has been trying to broker some kind of peace. He brings out his crucifix to make probably to call down lightning again at the same time, as the ward, who is eager to battle and eager to show his ability to be a combatant, is pulling out his sword. He gets it halfway out when all this transpires at the same time. The witch again was successful. The priest not so much, as he was trying to do of the metal that is amongst them, which is the extended sword of Mort's man. It hits the sword, the two tangential jumping of electricity. One of it arcs over to the priest's crucifix, which lights up. It lights up. The other one goes over there and hits the ward and blows him back. And he hits the ground. It slides in the mulch and in the scree a little bit. The other, the same thing for the man holding the sword, Mort's man. It peels off a section of his hand as he lets go of his, or skin rather, from his hand as he lets go of the sword, which is burned. The other man is taken aback and backsteps, and the witch is, as I said, we will leave here. We'll go. And the priest is under some illusion that he actually performed that, so that arc led out to the strike. So he is condemning the Mort's men about, standing in the way of walks with them. And they leave to the slack-jawed look of Mort's man, who is really sitting on the edge of don't know whether he should pursue this or not. So they head on with the warning to him not to pursue, right? Otherwise, it would be the same comrade out who, needless to say, I didn't go into detail, but that would have eviscerated him. Anyway, they're still working with the barrels down there. They leave off without further occurrence from being trailed by Mort's men. It seems they may be getting saucy, for all I know, or who knows. But anyway, they make it back. They have to go through the bog a little bit. It slows their travels down the southern reaches of water. Until they get there, they meet up with the hunter and the soldier in town, and they all compare notes, and they all go to Lord Washburn to seek audience, who is there with his wife, yet again, Lady Washburn, speaking about, in the middle out, when they see through the door, she sees the ward, and makes evident, to what she was saying, and she's pointing doubly at him. See, he's been gone. Look at what you've saddled me with, and he holds her quiet, calls, maybe a segment of a much larger Dane raiding party that looked to be impending and coming in or whatever. And three of the men had fallen, and the Lord assumes that the priest is there, that he has performed rites on them in some respect, which he follows in suit with that. Yes, he would. And the witch tells him, my lord, we did get to the wintering place of the Vikings, but it is no more set it aflame. And this validates to Lord Washburn that, yes, I was right. This is and so he gets a little bit lighter in spirit, that at least that's taken care of. But then they need to prepare palisades too, as a matter of the nation of this impending raid or onslaught from the Danes of such a number. So he feels like he's got a certain amount. The ward starts to say something, and then he dismisses the ward to go to with Lady Washburn, who isn't too happy to have that transpire, but she takes him and leads him out. Right. Earlier, I should say that nevertheless. So all of this information informs Washburn what he needs to do to prepare for the next day, and that's where we drew the curtain, and it faded to black. On horn or whatever, it's not that, but the pace and of it was natural and flowed. I handle it back and forth between everybody. Well, this goes more to show too how the game is effectual, and you can pack in a lot more narrative and what goes on in a session than so much filler. Less filling still tastes great, as it were. We don't have to stop to do a lot of computations. It just flows. So, but being juggling two different parties, a lot of times they were split up into four different areas, to where I jump back and forth, but a main segmented area of two different parties and back and forth and seeing what was transpiring. They never did really get into why, even though it was noted whenever they walked out of this corner area of this area, to hear each other to some extent. There was a point when they called across the river. I believe the ward did, or the soldier and Hunter and Ward did, to stay the movement of the witch as they saw her on the other hand. So she did recognize that and stay there for the ward to approach. Like we're sending him back. So, but and it was noted whenever they walked out of that eerie silence, came alive again. But that wasn't really delved into. That could have been theoretically, if there was an opportunity for a second session, folded into a second session, as well as examining possibly this dwarven cave, the subterranean, harassment of Mort and his men. So from this session, you can see how it feeds into the next set of random seeds that would be the next session that obviously we won't get an opportunity to play through. But that's what occurred. The guys, I believe, the results, there was plenty of backslapping and some moments of hilarity. Like any good entertainment, there's, they had fun. It was a good time had by all. I could satisfactorily and sufficiently say that. So it facilitated that for them at the convention well, and a lot transpired. I mean, what I'm saying here is pretty in depth. I'm trying to trace through it, but of course, in the narrative flow, you're going to be. I can't get into that deep unless there was an actual play, the way you see what transpired from moment to moment. In those moments that there was back and forth narrative, and there was situations where that I'm not able to reach into just with a recap here. So it was about 3 hours, 45 minutes. It was down to the wire. Had Jory to where it didn't feel like we had, that hard stop. It felt like an appropriate place to stop. And literally, when everybody's getting up, I passed the book around. Everybody signed the character's name, their name. I signed myself as the presenter, Jory as witness. And after that, they got up, shook hands. They went off, and the Mary, the head of the convention, came up, and she had before game she came up some intriguing aspect about her inquiries. That you could tell it was legit. It just wasn't. She was curious. This wasn't filler talk. The guys at different stages, they would reach up because we had several of the copies of the book. I had 3 copies laid out, and they could open it up and look through it. Though that wasn't their main goal. It was just moments when I'd see one of them pick it up and flip through it as another character was going over. But everybody was in tune to be able to play off of one another, which is really organic and just naturally evolving. So it's hard to get bored in a situation like that where you're like, just tell me when it's my time, right? Even though I know in actualities there are 2 parties and screen wipes, as it were, like Jason likes to say, like Star Wars, screen wipe to a different area, but they were across the river from each other, and this was happening in real time. So there was moments when the other party would be, so maybe wishful thinking, but therefore I think it's grounded in some rational information as far as their response to and the feedback response, which we didn't have a Q&A afterwards. It was very great time. Jory and I, it was exhausting to run almost 4 hours straight at that space. You can cover a lot of ground in Dark Age Man that might otherwise be several sessions in more of a rules and procedural, and had to do a cool down of playing about 3 or 4 games, 2-player games at the end with just Jory and I, as we talked about what had happened on the table. and because I still had to get up early in the morning to go to work the next day. So anyway, I'll get off here. It's been almost an hour and 20. So anyway, I'll let y'all go. And if you've stuck through to this far, you've just earned a repeat point. All right.